A yellow Oldsmobile, a London scrapyard, 1988. That's where one of the two cars actually started. Not in a design studio, not on a Chevrolet assembly line, in a junkyard, where a crew of effects men were pulling apart whatever they could find and had 12 weeks to turn it into the most recognizable vehicle in cinema history. You've heard the origin story. Two Impala chassis spliced together. Anton Furst's design, built at Pinewood Studios. Clean, cinematic. The kind of story that fits on a press release. The builders tell a different story. And the man who designed it, the man whose name is on the Academy Award, was dead before the car he created had finished its run. This is what actually happened to the 1989 Batmobile. Where it came from, what it was built from, who built it, and where the cars are now, the ones that can be found. By 1988, Batman had a problem. For most of the American public, Batman was still Adam West. The shark repellent, the utility belt, the fight scenes with the word Biff floating across the screen in primary colors. 20 years of cultural residue and none of it useful to Tim Burton. Warner Brothers handed Burton a franchise and a mandate. Make it dark. Make it feel like nothing that came before it. And do it in a way that announced the shift before a single line of dialogue was spoken. The car was going to have to do a lot of that work. Burton brought in Anton Furst as production designer. Furst was an Englishman, Royal College of Art, trained in illustration and theater design, worked with Kubrick on Full Metal Jacket. He understood architecture as mood. He understood that Gotham City wasn't a place, it was a psychological state. And he understood that the car Batman drove had to be an extension of Batman himself. Not a prop, an argument. Furst described what he wanted in terms that had nothing to do with automobiles. He wanted the most brutal expression of a car. He looked at salt flat racers of the 1930s, the Corvette Stingrays of the 1950s, jet aircraft, medieval armor. He wanted something that suggested sex and violence without announcing either. The bat mask, present on every Batmobile that had come before, was eliminated entirely. For the first time in the vehicle's history, the car would not look like a bat, it would feel one. Burton later admitted the Batmobile worried them both. Early on, it seemed that everything Anton and I came up with just looked like we were putting fins on cars. Cars can so easily become a joke. It took months of refinement before they had something that felt right on the page. Even then, Burton said, they weren't sure until they saw it in rushes. What they ended up with was not a car anyone had seen before. It was 23 feet long and nearly 9 feet wide. It had a jet turbine intake in the nose, flanked by fenders that swept back like mandibles, twin bat-fin rear stabilizers, a fighter jet canopy over a cockpit designed for two. It looked like it had been engineered in a world where the laws of physics had been negotiated with rather than obeyed. The design had to mean something before it moved, before it fired anything, before Michael Keaton folded himself into the cockpit and the canopy slid shut. It did. The concept illustrator who drew the actual car was Julian Caldo. Working under Furst's direction, Caldo produced the renderings that translated Furst's philosophy into something a fabrication team could work from. Furst set the brief. Caldo put it on paper. The Academy Award went to Furst. Caldo's name is not on it. Special effects supervisor John Evans was handed the build. He had 12 weeks, 2 cars, one for principal photography, one for stunts, and Furst had not finished the design when the build needed to start. Evans couldn't wait. He went to a London junkyard and found what he needed. Car number 1, a single Chevrolet Impala chassis cut and stretched to a 141-inch wheelbase. The wheels packed out, the engine dropped to keep the hood line low. Car number 2, a 1975 Oldsmobile Delta 88 Royale, yellow, previously used as a stunt vehicle in the British television series Dempsey and Makepeace, pulled from a scrapyard and pressed into service as the second Batmobile. Midway through the build, the team discovered the rear of the Delta 88 chassis was structurally twisted. They replaced it with a section from an ambulance. Nobody had time for anything else. The full-scale body form was carved in high-density polystyrene by Keith Short and Eddie Butler. That pattern then went to Protocol Moldings, a workshop in Battersea, South London, run by Jack Lovell and his son John. That is where the body was cast, not Pinewood, a family fabrication business in South London, working from a foam pattern, producing the Kevlar shell that would appear in screens in over 60 countries. The aircraft components came from a contact named Mike Shaw, parts from a Vulcan bomber, a Bristol Viper jet tail, Rolls-Royce components for the intake. The headlights were Honda Civic units turned upside down and painted yellow. The taillights were Ferrari. The fuel caps were from a London bus. The flamethrower in the rear produced the afterburner effect. The jet engine sound was sound design. On the test track, the car reached 90 miles per hour before it began to shake. The asymmetric rear fins, the two stabilizers set at slightly different heights, reportedly gave the car unpredictable handling characteristics at speed. Whether that was a design oversight or a consequence of the build timeline, no one has formally documented. Mrs. John Lovell, widow of the man who cast the body, appeared in an online forum in 2013. She had been reading discussions about how the car was built. She wrote, "Very few people know the true facts, and they were the ones working at Protocol Moldings at the time." She is correct. The paint was 6 layers deep, multiple colors laid under the black to produce what Furst described as the finish of a beetle, colors showing through the darkness, a surface that changed depending on the light. The car had a hidden second steering wheel and driver's seat, tucked between Keaton's position and the front passenger seat. A stunt driver could operate the vehicle while Keaton sat in the hero seat and acted. Batman's ears, as originally designed, were too tall to clear the canopy. A modified cowl with shorter ears had to be fabricated before filming could begin. 12 weeks, unfinished drawings, junkyard chassis, family workshop in South London. That is where the 1989 Batmobile actually came from. The 1989 car carried a matte finish. That was a deliberate choice, flat black against the expressionist darkness of Furst's Gotham. For Batman Returns 3 years later, the finish went gloss. Bo Welch had replaced Furst as production designer. The city got slightly lighter. So did the car. What the car did on screen was earn everything the designers had promised. The grappling hook sequence, the Batmobile firing a hook into a building corner and swinging through a high-speed turn while pursuing vehicles piled into each other, was practical. The car, on location, at speed. The Axis chemical siege, Batman using the vehicle as a weapon, was practical. The cocoon armor sequence, the car enveloping itself in a protective shell, used a separate full-size prop with stop-motion animation providing the movement. The miniature forest road leading to the Batcave was a radio-controlled scale model driven through a miniature set. The car appeared in both Burton films, then went further. It appeared in the Batman '89 comic series, an episode of the Batwoman television series, 14 video games, an OnStar commercial in 1999, and in 2022 it came back to cinema screens in The Flash, with Michael Keaton back in the suit and the car that had been built in a South London workshop in 12 weeks, pulling one more scene. Anton Furst accepted the Academy Award for Production Design in March 1990. 9 months later, producer John Peters signed him to an exclusive contract with Columbia Pictures. The promise was directing work. The first project announced was a medieval musical fantasy starring Michael Jackson. It never went into production. The contract blocked Furst from working on Batman Returns, the sequel to the film that had defined his career, the one job he wanted. He separated from his wife. He was prescribed Halcyon, a sleeping drug that had been banned in Britain due to documented side effects including amnesia, paranoia, and depression. His drinking worsened. He was scheduled to enter rehabilitation in 1992. On the night of November 24, 1991, he told the people he was with that he was going to the car to get his cigarettes. He jumped from the 8th floor of a parking structure. He was 47 years old. The car he had designed was still on tour. It would go on to appear in a sequel he never worked on, in comics, in video games, in television, in a film released 33 years after he built the thing. The builders in Battersea went back to their lives. The story that entered the public record, 2 Impala chassis, Pinewood Studios, Anton Furst's design, became the version everyone repeated. Furst's name stayed on it. His fingerprints did not. Two cars were built for the 1989 film. Both went on promotional tour in the United States and Japan after the film's release. Both returned for Batman Returns. After that, the trail splits. The 1992 Hero car, the principal photography vehicle for Batman Returns, was retained by Carl Casper, one of the builders contracted for the sequel, until 2021. It is now reported to be in a private collection in Southern California. It had a cameo in The Flash in 2022. That is the most recent confirmed public appearance of any original screen-used unit. One original Burton-era Batmobile is on permanent display at the Peterson Automotive Museum on Wilshire Boulevard in Los Angeles. The museum identifies it as screen-used from both films. Which specific unit it represents, whether it is the 1989 principal photography car or a later build, is not definitively documented in the public record. Producer John Peters is reported to keep one of the original cars at his home in Malibu. That report has never been independently confirmed from Peters himself. A Warner Bros.-owned promotional unit, one of 3 additional vehicles built after the films for publicity purposes, spent years at Six Flags Great Adventure in New Jersey, incorporated into a Batman-themed attraction. It eventually passed to a private collector. In November 2022, it was listed for sale through Classic Auto Mall at $1.5 million. The car is powered by a 48-volt electric motor. Top speed, approximately 25 to 30 miles per hour. The batteries had not been charged since approximately 1993. An Arizona collector named Dennis Danzig is noted as owning what Wikipedia describes as the majority of the Warner Bros. 1989 Batmobile. The phrasing suggests multiple units rather than a share of one car. The specifics have not been publicly clarified. Around the time of the film's release, MTV reportedly ran a contest in which the winner received one of the cars, engine removed, along with $25,000. What happened to that car has not been documented. The molds went to the United States after Batman Returns. What was subsequently built from them and where those units are is not fully known. Andy Smith, one of the SFX engineers who built the originals and accompanied them to the States for the sequel, put it plainly in an online post years later, quote, "All the molds went to the States, so who knows what was made," end quote. The man who knows what the cars were built from is gone. The woman who cast the body wrote one forum post and went quiet. The man who drew the actual concept illustrations is largely absent from the record. The cars are out there, most of them probably, in a museum in Los Angeles, in a private home in Malibu, in a collector's garage somewhere in the Southwest, on a trailer that hasn't moved since 1993, in a Southern California collection that doesn't publicize itself. The most famous car of 1989 is scattered, and the story of how it was built is still, largely, the version from the press kit. You cannot buy the original, but the 1989 Batmobile has generated one of the more serious replica communities in movie car history, and the path in is more accessible than the mythology suggests. Warner Bros. Licensed replicas exist. Hollywood Productions built at least one officially sanctioned example on an extended Chevrolet Impala chassis with a Chevy small block V8, a Harrier-style intake, and a working rear flamethrower. These units have appeared at major auctions. They are built to the design spec of the original and carry official licensing documentation. Independent replica builders are active across the enthusiast community. The design is well documented. Dimensions, proportions, component sourcing, and serious builds have been completed and driven. The donor vehicle of record is the Chevrolet Impala. The 1967 and 1974 are both cited across various build accounts. Both are widely available on the used market. A solid driver condition example can be sourced for well under $10,000 in most markets. That is your starting point if the build is what you want. If what you want is ownership without the project, the die-cast market for this specific car is deep. The 1989 Batmobile has been produced at 1:18 and 1:24 scale by multiple manufacturers over 3 decades. Serious collector examples exist alongside accessible entry-level pieces. The Chevrolet Impala donor vehicles are in the eBay Motors lane. The die-cast models are in the Amazon lane. The myth is cleaner than the truth. It usually is. 2 Impala chassis, Anton Furst,
Pinewood Studios. That's the version that went into the press kit in 1989 and has been repeated in every retrospective since. It's not wrong exactly, it's just not what the builders say. What the builders say is a yellow Oldsmobile from a scrapyard, a twisted chassis replaced with ambulance steel, a family workshop in Battersea, where the body was cast by people whose names are not in the Wikipedia article, Honda headlights turned upside down, London bus fuel caps, 12 weeks, a design that wasn't finished when the build started, and a man who imagined the whole thing, who stood in front of the Academy and accepted the award, who was promised everything that came next, and then wasn't there for any of it. The car outlived him by decades. It's still out there, in a museum on Wilshire Boulevard, in a private garage in Malibu, in a collection in Southern California that doesn't need to announce itself, in an auction listing with dead batteries and a flamethrower that still works. Nobody required the Lovell family to cast that body right. Nobody required Andy Smith to fly to the States and walk the Batman Returns crew through every system. Nobody required any of them to do it in 12 weeks from a set of unfinished drawings. They did it anyway. The car is still here. Their names are not.